We begin with the latest on the Tokyo Games. The newly expanded committee of the 2020 Olympics and Paralympics has reaffirmed the need to deepen debate on gender equality. The move follows the resignation of former committee president Mori Yoshiro over remarks demeaning women. The committee on Monday held its first meeting since 12 women were added to its board this month, pushing the ratio of female members to over 40%. The new members include Olympic marathon gold medalist Takahashi Naoko and Raita Kyoko, who heads the Japan Society for Sport and Gender Studies.
The Tokyo Games will be the first since the IOC presented a new gender equality policy. The Games have a duty to show the first step toward achieving that goal.
On Saturday, organizers decided the Games will be held without overseas spectators amid the continuing spread of coronavirus infections. The committee announced on Monday it'll also give up on accepting about 2,300 overseas volunteers, except for some with expertise. Committee President Hashimoto Seiko sought understanding from board members for the decision. She said it was made to ensure a safer Games for all participants and the people of Japan. Now, Thursday marks the start of the torch relay for the delayed Tokyo Olympics, but concerns over the pandemic continue to swirl. Earlier, Ai Uchida spoke with NHK World sports correspondent Maruyama Yuki.
What was going on behind the scenes of this unprecedented decision?
Officials had to decide how to address the public's concerns over the Tokyo Games. There's been a lot of anxiety in Japan that the coronavirus would spread if potentially millions of tourists came. In an NHK survey this month, when asked what form the Games should take, more than half of respondents said with a limited number of spectators or without spectators. A third said the event should be cancelled. The organizing committee hopes this action will boost domestic support for the Games. The IOC is also closely watching this issue.
And this decision to ban overseas spectators, what is the impact going to be?
Let's talk money first. Ticket revenue was expected to top more than $800 million, but now over 600,000 tickets that were already sold overseas will be refunded. A Japanese economist said the lost economic benefit will be over $1 billion. The government and the business community also hoped that the Games would serve as a catalyst for the recovery of tourism within Japan. There is an emotional impact too. The motto of the Tokyo Games is United by Emotion. And it was hoped that the Games would have the effect of uniting people from around the world, after what has been a very hard year for so many. From the point of view of the legacy of the Games, a valuable opportunity has been lost.
And indeed, there has been so many challenges already, but what are the challenges going forward?
Well, the organizing committee will set a basic guideline in April on the number of domestic spectators. But that could change depending on the coronavirus. We could even see the Games without any spectators. And I think the biggest challenge is getting that support by the people. Controversial comments by two organizing committee officials have disappointed many and dampened expectations. I think that many Japanese people don't want the Games, which have been in the works for years, to turn into something that nobody wants. Organizers still have a long way to go in gaining public trust and support for this Olympics. You mentioned we are approaching the final line, but as every runner knows, it's the last mile of a marathon that can prove the most brutal.
Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has begun a two-day visit to China for talks with his counterpart Wang Yi. The two are expected to confirm strengthening cooperation between their countries to counter the United States. Wang welcomed Lavrov Monday in the southern resort city of Guilin. According to Russia's foreign ministry, Lavrov told Wang it's good to continue direct communication, not just by phone and video, despite the coronavirus pandemic. He also said meeting regularly is justified as the global situation is changing rapidly. Wang is expected to explain the issues discussed last week between the top diplomats of China and the U.S. in Alaska. The talks were unusual as the two sides openly exchanged criticism. Lavrov's visit comes as Beijing is wary of the U.S.-led apparent containment strategy in the Indo-Pacific region directed at China. The leaders of the U.S., Japan, Australia, and India held their first Quad summit online this month. And last week, the U.S. foreign and defense chiefs visited Japan and South Korea. Now, Russia's relations with the United States have also been tense recently. Russia's ambassador to the U.S. has returned to Moscow for a possible review of its foreign policy toward Washington. The Kremlin reacted sharply to U.S. President Joe Biden's indication last week that he considers Russian President Vladimir Putin a killer. Shifting now to the bloody crackdown against pro-democracy protesters in Myanmar. A local human rights group says at least 250 people have been killed since the military seized power last month. But the demonstrators seem undaunted. Dozens of university students took to the streets in the southern city of Da Wei. They called for the end of junta rule and democracy to be restored. On Saturday and Sunday, demonstrators confronted armed riot police in the central city of Moniwa and many other parts of the country. State-run TV said the coup leader, Senior General Min Aung Hlaing, visited a key military outpost in the nation's south. He reportedly reminded soldiers their main duty is to protect the country from external threats. Military leaders have faced widespread international criticism since toppling the civilian-led government. People here in Japan are seeing no part of the country under a coronavirus state of emergency for the first time in 2.5 months. But it's far from business as usual, with officials and some companies introducing measures to guard against a new surge. The last remaining declaration for the Tokyo area has expired. It saw an 80% drop in cases, but a slow movement upward has some people on edge. The Tokyo Metropolitan Government confirmed 187 new cases of the coronavirus on Monday, a huge drop from earlier in the year. But the daily average for the week rose by about 5%.
We have to realize that we cannot afford to see a rebound in the number of cases.
Tokyo is keeping some anti-infection measures in place, including encouraging businesses to allow teleworking. It's also asking bars and restaurants to close by 9 p.m., which is 1 hour later than under the state of emergency. Many say they're doing what they can to stay afloat and make customers feel safe.
Our goal is to keep the restaurant bustling with customers while preventing infections.
Businesses hoping for a boost from foreign tourists will have to wait a bit longer. Stringent measures remain in place at the border, and it's unclear when they'll be eased. But major sightseeing spots in and around Tokyo hope to see an increase in domestic travel. It's graduation season, and many students seem ready for an escape.
We had been saying we wanted to go to Kyoto for a long time, but we couldn't. Instead, we came here, and we enjoyed it.
Shinkansen bullet train stations have prepared for the potential uptick in passengers. This station in Osaka is checking travelers from the capital as part of an effort to stop coronavirus infections from spreading across prefectural borders.
With the start of the new fiscal year, this is a peak period. With cases rebounding, the start of a fourth wave is in sight. We hope people will follow basic anti-infection measures thoroughly.
Across Japan, officials confirmed more than 800 new infections and over 30 deaths on Monday. Cases are going up in some parts of the nation. The weekly average for Osaka, where an emergency declaration was lifted last month, is up 34%. Hyogo's weekly average is up nearly 50%. And in Miyagi, the figure doubled. In response to that, Miyagi is asking bars and restaurants in the prefectural capital to close early for the next 3 weeks. Japanese Prime Minister Suga Yoshihide has held talks over the phone with the head of Vietnam's Communist Party. He said Japan will help the country deliver coronavirus vaccines. Suga told Ungwen Fuchon on Monday, Japan will provide Vietnam with funds to set up the systems necessary to transport and store vaccines at low temperatures. Suga asked for cooperation in supporting Vietnamese people stranded here in Japan and unable to return home due to the pandemic. Chung replied his country will work closely with Japan to help them swiftly return to Vietnam. The leaders also exchanged views on regional issues, including China's maritime activities in the East and South China Seas, as well as the situation in Myanmar. Switching gears now to the weather, dry conditions are continuing to lead to wildfires in parts of Mexico. Our meteorologist John Thunnell explains if any rain is in store during the week in our World Weather Report.
Hello, we've been talking about some dry weather that has been causing some concern when it comes to wildfires across portions of Mexico, and we definitely are seeing that type of pattern. Let me show you some video to give you an idea of the situation that's on the ground, as ongoing hot and dry weather has led to wildfires that have burned thousands of hectares of forest in Mexico, with some structures being destroyed. Helicopters carrying water have been deployed to northern Mexico. Hundreds of firefighters have been tackling the blazes, and according to the authorities, there were 50 fires in 12 states on Sunday alone. And here's the bad news. We're not really talking about much in terms of rain as we go forward throughout the next 24 hours. Really seeing mainly a dry pattern, some clouds here and there, maybe a sprinkle or two, depending on maybe if you get a little bit of a pop-up shower. But other than that, it's going to be dry with temperatures into the upper 20s and lower 30s, so that's not going to help the situation as we go into Tuesday. Now, up north into North America, into the United States and Canada, we have a low pressure system moving through the southern plains, and this system is likely going to trigger some strong thunderstorms as we go through Monday, and then into Tuesday and Wednesday, the storm will be moving down toward the southern areas of the United States into the east, and as it does so, it is going to bring a small risk of some severe thunderstorms for the next few days, so be on the lookout for that. Snow coming in from the north and west, and so Denver, you'll be looking at a chance for some winter precipitation with a high of 6 on Tuesday. Showers and thunderstorms for Oklahoma City into Houston as we go through Tuesday. Meanwhile, on Monday, we saw full bloom taking place into Fukuoka and Tokyo, some of the earliest full blooms being reported when it comes to the record books. Highs were in the low to mid-teens, but we are going to see a big warm-up as we go through the rest of this week as high pressure comes in and really pushes in some of that warmer air. 20 degrees on Wednesday in Tokyo, up to 21 by Friday. Warm temperatures in the South Portal with highs in the low teens by Wednesday. Hope you have a good day wherever you are.
Drug company AstraZeneca and Oxford University say a study confirms their COVID-19 vaccine is 79% effective and does not increase risk of blood flow problems. Japan charges an American father and his son with helping former Nissan chief Carlos Ghosn flee trial in Japan. In Niger, the Constitutional Court confirmed the election win of presidential candidate Mohamed Bazoum on Sunday. And in many U.S. cities, thousands demonstrated Sunday to show support for Asian Americans after the killing of 8 people in Atlanta.
Safe and highly effective. That's the verdict from a large US trial of the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine. It shows it's 79% effective at stopping symptomatic disease and 100% at preventing serious illness. Saudi Arabia has proposed a plan to end the conflict in Yemen. It includes a nationwide ceasefire supervised by the UN, as well as restarting negotiations between the Saudi-backed Yemeni government and Houthi rebels who are backed by Iran. Several Western countries have announced sanctions against officials in China over human rights abuses against the Uyghur population in Xinjiang province. The sanctions were announced as part of a coordinated effort by the European Union, the UK, Canada and the US. And parts of New South Wales and Australia are suffering their worst floods in 60 years.